Welcome back to this board Game Officer. So today I'm going to go through my top 3 games that I played at SaltCon this last weekend. And if you saw me there, I was wearing this shirt. So now you see why I was wearing this shirt. This is my YouTube channel. Alright, so anyways, I'm going to go through my top 3 games that I played at SaltCon. And the very first one is actually one that's still in development, but I actually had a lot of fun with it. And that was King of Battle. So King of Battle is basically an artillery war game. And they actually have a website already. I was pretty excited to see that. So I could kind of show this off. So here you have, I think that is the MLRS. I can't really tell here. But you've got one of your tanks or your artillery pieces on the board. There you go. There's your MLRS, so your multiple launch rocket system. These are going to be your long range shooters. Basically, they could shoot anywhere on the board, no matter where they're at. So they're they stay back and shoot. And then you actually even have infantrymen on the board that are running around. Here's kind of a bird's eye view. You've got these infantrymen going around. These little white things, these are just terrain right now. As I said, this is still in development. You've got a tank going around, and then you have some paladins and the MLRSs, which once again is the multiple launch rocket system, basically your rocket launchers that can launch all the way across the board. There you go. There you got your tank. Here we go. So here's everything. You've got your MLRS right there. Oh yeah, you have also the cannons or your howitzers. You've got your paladins, which are basically self-propelled howitzers, which are basically your cannons or your guns. And then you've got a couple of your tanks, and you've got some infantrymen. So something really cool about this game is, as you can see, King of Battle was created by an artillery officer and his brother. Now, King of Battle is what they call the artillery in the army, actually. It was actually really cool. So I was in the artillery for the first 3 or 4 years of my military career. And so I actually got to sit down with him and his brother. So that was actually really cool, just kind of fun and BS. But it's really, really cool, and especially because he's an artillery officer. I was just a private, so nothing special. But because a military officer, this is really what he does to strategize in the real world, right? So it's a game really based off of what they would do, your strategy, how do you move your men around. Anyway, so the idea of the game is to destroy your enemy, right? There's multiple ways to do it. There's one way is you're trying to get rid of all of the artillery pieces. If you get rid of all the artillery pieces, which are your 2 cannons, 2 paladins, and your 2 MLRSs or your rockets, either you get rid of all of their artillery pieces, or if you are in a deficit of 4. So if you still have your 6 pieces and the other person has 2, you just give up right there because you're not going to win, because artillery is your main piece. You have your paladins, which are your self-propelled howitzers, and your cannons, which are just howitzers but not self-propelled. They both have a range of 8 on the board. So you can see these got these little markers here for your rockets and your howitzers. Or sorry, I call them howitzers just because that's what they're called, but they call them cannons in this game just because that's more civilian friendly. You got little markers so it's easy to tell who and what is in your range. So let's back up here. What this game actually is I call it a battleship on steroids. Right? So what you're going to do is on your turn, you're going to plan. You're going to say, I want to shoot my rocket on, you can't really tell. So they have numbers on the side, and then they have letters on top, right? Just like battleship. So you're like, I'm going to shoot, but secretly on your paper, you're going to write down, I'm going to shoot my rocket at, Charlie 10. So you're going to say, I'm going to hit this square right here. Then on their turn, they're going to move and then plan. So they're actually going to move before you shoot. So they can move all of their pieces. And then after they move, then they get to plan of where they want to shoot my guys. Then when it's my turn again, now what I planned on that first turn now gets to shoot. So you're trying to predict what your enemy is going to do, because you don't know where it's going to be. You can see them on the board, but you don't know where they're going to be. So that's kind of the battleship kind of thing, because you're launching just like randomly, but it's more strategic because you're like, well, this guy can only move 2, so I know he's going to be in this range, so I could shoot here because I know I'm going to hit him no matter what, unless he retreats for whatever reason. Or this tank can only come out this way, so I'm going to put one here so when this tank comes through, I could shoot it, right? So you're trying to plan out. That part is super, super cool. And then the turn order just goes, you shoot what you last planned, you move, you plan. You shoot what you last planned, you move, you plan. You go through until all the artillery pieces are out. Not only do you have your 6 artillery pieces, your two cannons, your 2 paladins, and your 2 rockets, you also have 2 tanks and I think 5 or 6 artillerymen. The tanks, they can move 3 spaces and they can shoot 2 spaces away. Your infantry can move 2 spaces and can shoot 1 and do 1 damage, and the tanks do 2 damage. So you could slowly move them up the board. If you strategically place them, you will be able to do 1 or 2 damage to whatever you're attacking, whether it be artillery or tanks. Now remember, the artilleries and tanks are just there to fight. What really to win is getting rid of the artillery pieces. As you can see, these little pegs are the health. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. I don't think you can see that. But they got 2 or 3 health depending on the howitzer versus cannons versus tank and infantrymen. Let's say you shoot an artillery piece and you aim for this square right here, which is 1-1 echo. So you're looking at echo 11 right here. Now if I hit right here with any artillery piece, I'm going to do 2 damage to that square and 1 damage of what they call splash damage to any square to it. So if I do echo 11, I'm going to do 1 damage to this infantryman. Now if I picked Foxtrot 10 right there, I would do 2 damage to the infantryman and kill him right off the bat. And you just basically go back and forth trying to kill each other. It's super, super fun. I had a lot of fun with it because I like that strategy. It wasn't only strategy of, okay, I'm going to lob it over and hope it hits you, but you're trying to think of what your enemy's trying to think to see if they would do it. Or when I was playing with him, with one of the creators, I actually kind of baited him with one of my infantry, right? Just like you do in chess where you bait a pawn so they come and kill it so you can kill them. That's what I did. I baited him so he moved his tank to come kill my infantryman, and that's exactly where I planned to shoot my howitzer, and so I killed his tank right off the bat because he fell into my trap. It was awesome, right? So all that strategy was very, very fun. King of Battle, super awesome, super fun game. I really enjoyed it. It's still very early in the development, so still months till it comes out. But if you're ever at SaltCon or anywhere that you're going to be, I urge you to go try it out. But I had a lot of fun with it. My number 2 in playing today was a very popular one, Heat. Now, as you know, Heat came out, a year ago? A little less than a year ago? Something like that. Yeah, 2022. This is a racing game. You are racing around the board, and you take 2 laps around this board. So this is a little bit of an older picture, but this pretty much shows you what you're going to do is you're going to have a deck full of cards that have a certain number on it, and that's how fast your card's going to go. Then it depends on what gear you're in is how many cards you can play, right? So the more gears you're in, or the higher the gear, the more cards you could go, the faster you go, right? It thematically makes sense. However, the big thing is there are corners in the game. There are corners in this game, and as you can see, they've got a number right in the middle of that turn. What that means is the cards that you play, if the cards that you play are over that number, you are going to spin out or overheat, or I don't know what they call it. But basically, you're going to get negative cards into your hand. You're going to have to go back, or you're going to take more. Basically, you're going to take those negative heat cards into your deck, which just clumper up your hand. And then if you get too many of those, you're going to totally spin out and come all the way back to around that corner after all those heat cards are into your deck. So you have to manage how fast you're going. When it talked about the gears, whatever gear you're in, that you have to play that many cards. So if you're in gear 4, you have to play 4 cards. If you don't have low cards and you're going around this corner with 4, you're going to spin out pretty darn quick. So at the beginning of each turn, you're going to pick what gear you're going to be in. You can shift 1 up and 1 down for free, but if you want to shift up 2 or shift down 2, you're going to have to take 1 heat, right? You're kind of overshifting. But that kind of can get you, so you're only playing enough cards so you're not going around the corner too fast. So then it's got the little steps on top here. I can't find a good picture of the board. But here, this is a really cool mechanism that they have as well. That if you're in last place, or if you're playing with 5 or more players, if you're in last or second to last, you get extra options. You can cool down, which is getting rid of those heat cards or those negative cards from your hands, to discard those. And you can play one more speed card, right, to kind of get you up ahead, which is a really, really cool catch-up mechanic, which makes it a very tight game the entire game, which is really cool. Then after that, you could cool down if you have any cooldown abilities. You could take heat if you have to take any heat. And you can add cards if you have an add card ability. Then also in this little corner, once again, sorry I can't find a good picture, but this is a, I don't know, tailwind or something. Anyways, basically if you end your movement, all of your movement right behind a player or right to the side of a player, you get to go 2 extra spaces. Once again, really changing up that mechanic of who's in first and second kind of thing. Or even third and fourth. It really changes up everyone because it's so tight. Everyone's always matching up right next to each other. Like, that's happens very often, and it's really cool to see that. It's also kind of cool. You've got these numbers here, the 12, 13, 14, 15. That tells you how long it is until your next corner, so you can better plan a little bit easier. And then, so after you end your movement, you will then draw your hand size back up to 7. I believe it was 7 cards in your hand at all times. And then you will go again, and you go around the board twice. When I played, we only did one because of time constraints. It was late at night. People had to go home. But it was so fun just because I started off horribly. I was the first few rounds. I was way behind. And then I ended up killing everyone at the end. We only did 1 lap, but I was way ahead of everyone. Right? So even if you're bad, that catch-up mechanic works very well. So I thought that was really cool fun mechanic there. That there is heat. If none of that made sense what I said, there's plenty of other videos that tell you about heat, so you can go and check those out. Now, for my number 1 game that I played over this weekend, I had so much fun with it. Once again, it was another newer game that's being developed as of right now. It is actually in a Kickstarter right now, and that was Four Horsemen. Now, I don't know if you've looked at this game yet. I highly encourage you to do this. I'm actually going to do one of my review of reviews video where I really look at all the reviews to see what everyone's saying about it. But here's my 2 cents about it, as of right now at least. Four Horsemen is a cooperative demon slaying, boss manipulating, deck upgrading game of apocalyptic proportions. So throughout it, you're playing as heroes. These heroes are going to be Greek heroes, Greek mythology heroes, Judaism heroes. He's got some Chinese heroes. He's got some Nordic heroes, and then Egyptian heroes, all as like add-ons and stuff. But you've got all these different heroes within all these different factions, and they are all, and you could play multiple factions together at one time, and they all battling these 4 horsemen that are basically, they are coming for the apocalypse, and these heroes are coming to try to save Earth so it doesn't go in there. As the like gods or heroes, they're not supposed to be on Earth, and so they have not only a life or divinity, I think is what he calls it, but they also have corruption that they gain as on the Earth because they're not supposed to be there and the apocalypse going on. So they're starting to get a little bit of corruption that goes on, and their corruption builds. Now, something really cool with that is not only is their divinity their health, but if their divinity and their chaos ever match up, whether that's down here on the 1 or whether that's up there at the 12, that counts as a fallen hero. So you have to manage your health and your chaos at the same time. However, your chaos is going to make you stronger. As you can see here, these are special abilities. Each hero has their own special abilities. And for each corruption, you can do 1 more ability anytime, as much as you want, as long as you can pay for it. Now, talking about paying for it, it is resource management, or another reviewer actually called it a resource hoarding game, because sometimes you just need to keep all of them because sometimes you just need resources later on. But it's essentially a resource management game, or it has an aspect of that resource management. So here's the resources here. You got Zeal, Wisdom, Prestige, Spiritual, and then the demons are the actual demons that you're killing. And then you got your corruption and your divinity tokens that you keep track of. But so these 4 are basically your Zeal, Wisdom, Prestige, and Spiritual are your resources that you're going to have to manage. As you can see, it has a spot on the board for each one of those. And these abilities show. So that fire is that spirituality. So you have to pay 2 to give someone else another type of. And that chest is basically one of your general resources. Where down here you have to move one of the horsemen down 1. You have to get rid of a prestige and 2 spirituality for someone else to gain a corruption or gain another general resource. Right? So there's a lot of things that can go on here and can help. Now comes into the card play. Each turn you're going to have a hand of 5, and you're going to place down 4 of those cards. And depending on where you place it on your board, depends on what it does. As you can see, if you put this card in the boon spot, you're going to plus 2 Zil resources. If you put this in the use slot, you're going to be able to kill 3 demons for wherever you're at, but it's going to cost you 1 Zil, so you'll have to get rid of 1 Zil. Now, if you put it in the sacrifice slot, you're going to kill 3 demons for free. You don't have to pay for this time. And you could choose another hero to kill 1 demon where they're at. But as it says sacrifice, you do have to sacrifice that card. Therefore, that card leaves the game. It's not discarded. It completely leaves the game. But at the end of each round, you are going to be buying new relics. In the top right hand corner, it tells you how much resource it is to buy it. And they're going to give you stronger powers. So that is one thing that I didn't understand until I played it. But this deck upgrading game, didn't really understand what that meant. But basically each turn you are discarding or destroying a card, sacrificing a card, and getting a new one. And then the next turn you are sacrificing a card and getting a new one. And now you reset your deck. So it almost feels like a deck builder because you're buying a card each time. But you're also sacrificing a card each time. So every time you reset your deck, there's always 10 cards. You will never have more. Well, I'm sure there might be some abilities. But in general, you're never going to have more than 10 cards in your deck. But your deck is going to get stronger unless you're sacrificing those stronger cards. But essentially, that's where the deck upgrading system comes in. I think that is so unique. That was so cool. It was actually really fun to see because usually with a deck build, you're like, oh, I got that card. And then you're like, well, who knows when I'm going to get it. Where this time you recycle through your deck every 2 turns because you always have 10 cards and you always start with 5. So you're recycling through your deck every 2 turns. So those new cards come by really quickly. Anyways, super fun mechanic there. But at the end of each hour is what they call it. Each hour, you're going to have some event that happens. And depending on how many players you're playing, on how much happens, and an event, the first time it's out, it's going to do the top. And then it slides down to the next slot and does the 2 for the next round. And then the next, you're going to do number 3. As you can see here, the event slowly goes down. And then after the third one, it's going to be discarded. However, down here at the bottom, when this thing is spawned or played out, you can actually choose to spend all of this stuff here, depending on how many players you're playing. But you can spend all of that to just get rid of that card. So it'll still take up the slot on the event track. But you will not have to do all 3 of these. It's expensive, but you're also not having to do any of those. So it's kind of a positive negative kind of thing. You're trying to figure out what's best. And this is the world map where the demons spawn, and you're moving around the board to try to kill all those demons. And the last thing here is the 4 horsemen. They are on this track and they are trying to get to that center. If any one of the 4 horsemen get to the center of the track, you lose the game. And each time they take a step, they're going to do something negative to you. So there's abilities to push the horse back. There's going to be pushing the horses forward. So really kind of cool mechanic there. Another way to die is, as we talked about, if your divinity equals your chaos, you are a fallen hero. Now, the only thing that really does, if you only have 1 fallen hero, basically anytime that you are to gain chaos, instead of gaining chaos, you are just going to move 1 horseman forward, which obviously is going to make the game end quicker. Or if all heroes out are fallen, then you also lose. So those are the 2 ways to lose there. To win, each villain is going to have their own win condition. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see that very well, but each villain is also going to have their own time. They're going to give you the amount of time basically. So you have 8 hours, 11 hours, 11 hours, 13 hours to defeat that hero. Now, when I say hours, that is not a real hour in real life. That is an hour meaning a round. A game usually takes about 2 hours in real life, 2 to 3 hours in real life, but hours is our single round. So that could get confusing. Be careful if you see, oh, this one takes 13 hours. Not real hours, just game hours, so 13 rounds. So that there is a quick down and dirty of 4 Horsemen. I'm super excited. Like I said, I'm going to do a review of reviews of this game just because I want to see what everyone else is saying about it, and I want you guys to know what everyone else is saying about it. So stay tuned for that coming up probably this week or next week. So that was my top 3 games that I played at SaltCon this 2023 end of summer. That was actually my first time to SaltCon. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast. I'm super glad I went. And I lucked out. I live like 5 minutes from it. So it was a con that was super cheap for me in that aspect. So click right here to check out another review of reviews to see what that thing is even about. I'll actually put another review of reviews right here so you can kind of see what those are about, because I'm really trying to get this series a little bigger. So please go check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any other game that you want me to do review of reviews. And I will see you later.